This is Identity at the Center.
Welcome to the Identity at the Center podcast. I'm Jeff, and that's Jim. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Jeff. How are you?
How's bad yourself?
Doing great. Here at Identiverse 2025. Feels like there's so many people to thank.
There is. There's a lot of people. Definitely want to give a shout out to Shirley. She's the behind-the-scenes MVP. So, Shirley, if you're listening, this is all possible because a lot of the work that she put in to help us get this going.
Yeah, and RSM Sum is here.
Yep, RSM. So we got some banners for that. We have a nice little banner for Identity at the Center that's behind our guest.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been a very cool. I think we're slowly but surely starting to figure this out a little bit.
Have you gotten any negative comments that we have a QR code?
No, I don't think anybody actually scans it. I have no idea if they do or not. So
yeah.
It just seemed like an interesting idea to put up there and maybe help somebody. I don't know.
Yeah, it's been really cool. A lot of our listeners have been here this week and just stopped by the booth, said hi, told us to listen to the podcast, and that they find it to be a big service. And it's just like, wow.
Which is the best part of doing this. So they got us up here to people who listen. So it definitely means a lot anytime someone comes up and just takes the time to say, hey, thanks for listening. And I'm always curious too, where they find us, because we don't advertise. So it's like, all right, well, so-and-so told me about it, or whatever it may be. So super cool.
I think the other thing that makes the conference seem so great is all the people who volunteer to speak and be on panels and kind of pay it forward. And one of our past guests, our guest today, is one of those people who's paid it forward. And why don't you introduce, I don't want to steal your role on the podcast.
No, you're doing so well. Yeah, let's get to our guest. His name is Sean Odell, and he is here of his own free will. His opinions are his own, right? All that legal stuff. We're just talking to Sean at the moment, right, Sean?
Yes, sir. You got it.
Okay, so Sean, tell us a little bit about, you were with us before, a couple times actually, but for a brief kind of intro, what is it your day job is?
Do a lot of stuff with identity security, both in consumer and workforce at the Walt Disney Company, specifically focusing on continuous identity management at Disney, and a plethora of my other responsibilities is all the way over on the consumer side, and every other domain you can think of with workforce, so SSO, IGA, PAM, make stuff happen, figure out tough problems, and the plethora of integrations a company that size gives you on a daily basis. It is so much fun.
Excellent use of the word plethora, for example. We actually had a panel today, so I moderated a panel that you were a part of as the main kind of driving force behind us, let's be honest. Why don't we start there? Let's recap the panel, and it was called Bringing It All Together, Harnessing the CAEP Abilities with Event-Driven IAM.
Pun intended.
Yep, for sure. So tell us, what was the panel about? Sort of give us kind of a synopsis of it for people who weren't able to be there.
So we started off, first off, the panel was absolutely great. I think the way you handled it was absolutely fantastic. The layout was great.
So you're already going the right way, because flattery will get you everywhere with me, so I appreciate that.
More stickers. More
Here
stickers.
You go. I got some in my pocket.
We set it up pretty nicely. The first part was giving background and context, what is CAEP, what this use case is, what's a real world example, which then flowed nicely into asking all the panels. So Atul Toshi-Benkwali, we got Mike Kaiser, we had Andrew Cameron from GM, and myself, and we all played off each other very well, and we had very disparate examples that all resonated, and we kind of covered what we wanted to cover in the first 15 minutes, and then the audience just took off with questions. It was we threw away all the agenda. It's we had an idea, and they're they hit all the topics that we wanted to hit on the agenda just by asking questions. So that tells me a lot that people are starting to really embrace the event-driven approaches here, and the conference here is coming really full circle with embracing 5 key disciplines consumer identity, sorry to say it, AI.
We almost made it the entire time too without talking
6 seconds left.
6 seconds left out of a 50-minute panel.
Yep.
And
Andrew Cameron.
Andrew Cameron.
He had said, I don't want to say it, but I said
we did
AI.
Yep.
So they had continuous identity, they had non-human, they had AI. I think it was citizen identity, and there was one more. But it was a nice non-Venn diagram from Andy. But it just highlighted the importance that the main 2 buzzwords here are NHI and AI. They really are. But the foundational pieces to making that safe, secure reality and realizable is you need event-driven. You need to have a continuous identity paradigm to get to the realization and the controls of what AI can give you, and the security you can have with all of your what I like to call as workload IAM, not NHI, because the way I am is they're all workloads. I follow Martin Kopinger and what Eric Wallstrom's doing over in Gartner. Like, I like workload IAM as a generic term because almost everything's a workload. A machine, your device, your laptop. So we're veering off topic, continuous, but I want to pull it back to where the foundation for a lot of things is data, and that's continuous, that's event driven. So I think the panel was fantastic. Some of the questions that I heard from the audience was, and I was really shocked, Jeff. It was more, how do I implement this? What do I do if? It was technical. It wasn't like, oh, give me the boxes and arrows. It was more like a great question was about rate limiting and thresholds and throughput. And I was like, wow. Like, then they all looked to me and I'm like, well, I guess I'm answering this question. And
you were the only one who sort of raised your microphone. Like, hey, Shaw's on.
They all were like, I'm like, okay, got it. But the answer, and I gave her the answer, and she just was like, yeah, but, and she kept pressing on it. And I'm like, so you really want to, then Atul took a stab, and then Andrew took a stab, but then what it came back down to was, the data that you're going to be using in these security event tokens with continuous identity gives you the ability to be less chatty with tokens, for an example. And I thought it was a very good distinction that by harnessing and utilizing this paradigm, continuous identity, you have less tokens flying around the wild because you're being more precise. Like, I can give you all a token for 24 hours and not worry about it. Because if I have all these detected controls happening in the background and integrations that if you look suspect or malicious, I can just say, oh, Jim's cool, Jeff, you look suspect, I'm just going to revoke your session, but that's one token versus having to always do token refresh. So I thought it was a really good example, and she understood it spot on, which is I was so happy because the maturation level is raising more and more. Like when we first talked about CAEP.
Yeah, I want to ask you if there was a difference in mindset, or what did you notice from the one we did last year, which I think was more presenting this idea and sort of getting people up to speed, versus this year where a year has passed now. It's like, okay, how much more real is SSF and CAEP?
Can we go back one more year
absolutely.
to 23? So when I first presented it, I had to give them the breakdown, like, here's what a JWT looks like. Here's the data in it. Here's why you use it. In 2024, we did that awesome panel, and it got better. But then even this year, it was more, the background, we understand it. The use case, cool. But now they're like, tell me how to use this. Like, it's almost like you want this more. How do I get it? They were looking for prescriptive guidance on it, and it made me very happy because we put a lot of hard work into this in the standards bodies, and even with working externally with companies like Okta and Apple, that it's becoming a reality. And even at the last Gartner Interop, I mean, 30 plus people came to Interop and tested out. That's huge. I think Mike Kaiser was saying on stage that he's never seen adoption that quick, that fast, and I was floored. So, I mean, I know Atul's excited about it. I am. Shane, our other working group co-chair, is excited about it. Everyone is.
Yeah, we bring it up a lot with vendors and asking them what is their plan to support SSF and things
I always
like that.
ask. Yeah,
and I think that's probably one of the more important things we can do as customers of these products is say, what are your plans to support shared signals framework?
Because
are you going to?
Correct. Because it is my requirement as your customer that I want to communicate that way.
And
absolutely.
The more customers who do that, the faster it gets out to roadmap, which drives adoption, which then drives interoperability. And then, hey, guess what? We're sharing signals.
So sharing is caring, right? Exactly. One of the other fun takeaways from it was it naturally, I mean, tell me what you think if I'm off base here, but it naturally progressed from CAEP abilities into CAEP into data. Mm-hmm. It's a natural progression. To do this, you need data foundations. And it was interesting. And someone asked a question, I forget who it was, but it was more of who owns this.
That was Vladislav.
And I know you were like, I'm sorry, what?
That was Vlad. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It was. Yeah, and I know you hopped on. You're like, I want on this one. and
it's such a loaded term though.
I know.
What do you mean by ownership?
So we all said it depends, and Atul said it depends, and I'm like, yes. And what it came down to is I think you called it out it's politics. One reason, and then Atul said everyone, and then I think Andrew Cameron was whispered stakeholder. Mm-hmm. And then he's like, yeah, it makes sense. But I think that was the question that sparked 15 hands. So it was awesome to see. It really was. I was flattered to actually be there.
It was a really good question, and I think this is something that gets overlooked a lot. Is you go off and buy tools and you build programs and all kinds of stuff, and it's like, okay, well, what are the roles and responsibilities within your IAM program? And a lot of this stuff is not technical. It is agreement in whatever political structure your organization runs in to say, okay, here's how we're going to collectively operate and kind of move things forward.
Agreed.
Was there anything that surprised you in each conversation today? Like, was there something that's like, oh, I didn't think about that, or was it kind of what you were expecting, the questions? Because I felt like it made my job way easier. So thank you to everyone in the audience who asked the questions. We spent 30 minutes, I think, straight on questions from the audience after a quick, like, hey, we're going to level set real quick for like 10, 15 minutes, and then it was just bang, bang, bang questions.
No, I think earlier I covered it. The only thing that surprised me was that they were above a baseline. I was talking about that. And they were really above water, which is good. No question really shocked us at all, pretty much. There was an interesting one towards the end about relevancy, context, and efficacy of signals. Signals. It was also a very loaded question. And the TLDR of it was, can you trust external signals in your platform to emit more? And the answer is no. They're points of data, and it's all relative to where, if that's your only source, that's all you have, the answer to your own question. But if it's one out of many, do you have 5 sources, and that one is like, is it a 20% weight? Is it a 5% weight? And it's subjective. I can't give you the answer. You can't give him the answer. Only his data can give him the answer. So I think that didn't shock me, but it was very much like, oh, they're thinking that way now, which is good.
Yeah, that ownership question I thought was right on, and I think you handled it super well, because I think it's a loaded term. That was what you called it.
I don't think it was a gotcha question. I think it was a it was a genuine.
It was a genuine question.
We have to address this. So how do we solve for it?
It was like a help me understand this. Exactly. Yeah.
You got into the discussion about policies, and Mike talked about federation. So I was trying to picture exactly what he meant. Was it that each end system will, take the event signals and apply policies to them, and they will have a framework for policy decision-making, policy enforcement, or will there be some kind of middle tier layer that does that for the applications?
I think you can have both, but I think what Mike was talking about was if I integrate with your system, for example, I send you a prescriptive action that says, we have an agreement that you're going to action on this. The policy in your system says, when I receive a session revoke token, I take this action. That's a policy. Because you're saying intake maps to this thing. You're actually building what Atzel and I joke about, which is that CAEP ability matrix. But that's policy. So if say for example, let's say Jeff sends you a signal, and you're like, that's just information, because I may not trust Jeff's stuff. But our agreement is, I am your IDP. I'm telling you, revoke this session. Your policy in your app, which is a very loaded term to say, is more like a rule. Whenever I get a token from Sean, my job is to revoke this session. That's where you're talking about federated policy, because then from a transmitter perspective, when I send you something, I have my own policy that says if I get these signals coming in from disparate sources and the risk score is over a tolerance, my policy says if signal of this type, session revoke, is malicious and the score is over 90, I have to embed a token to these systems, and you're one of them. So that's my policy, that's your policy. That's what I think Mike was talking about with federations there.
So where do you see the decision being made on which signals, which events to send to which applications? So, for example, we've talked about, Mike was representing SailPoint. We're talking about SailPoint. Hey, we've integrated into this framework. I mean, do you send him every signal, or send SailPoint every signal that you have in the database?
It's a great question, and I think the way you'd have it as a transmitter. So it actually goes back to the question Vlad asked: is who owns this? Mm-hmm. So taking into a context, like if you have one company that has an Uber transmitter that is going to be for all the workforce, right? Their policy would be that anything to do with provisioning, lifecycle management, or even access management, you could send that to an IGA platform where the platform could start doing embedded, already example workflows where they act as an appliance. So we actually covered that too in the panel, which is like, thank you, great setup, right? Where this fabric of signals that you ingest and all these things, you have these things popping off them as appliances, like IGA platforms being one of them, PAM platforms being one of them, IDPs being one of them. The way you target events and event types is intrinsic to the domain. So a lot of words. Great. So breaking it down very easy. If it's a provisioning event or a lifecycle event or even a data change event, IGA. So if my attributes change about me, maybe I send a skim event to my IDP and my IGA platform. However, if my IGA platform informs my IDP of the change, I send it to one spot and it federates out to the other ones, federation. So it's very dependent upon the given integration. So it's a long answer to say it depends, but like CAEP ones, applications 100%. IGA ones, you could even, like, let's be honest here, if it's a hard enough event where you're prescriptive and you say it's a session revoked because it's really bad,
right?
Like if Jeff has access to like the world, not only do we want to revoke his sessions, I want to remove all his access. And you can do that many ways, but let's say you have an IGA platform and you're all in on it. I send the same token to your IDP, to your IGA platform. And your IDP says, I'll kill your real-time sessions, and your IGA platform does admin things that it says, oh, all your roles you have, all your gone. That way you are essentially marked as an adversary. Not in a bad way, but someone's acting as you. So they're impersonating you, so you are considered an adversary at that point. Great question. Great question.
Thank you. It seems like most of the conversation I'm hearing is like the signals would come from within your enterprise. But is there a thought that signals would come from maybe partners you federate with?
Yes.
Would signals come from big tech?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's actually...
I think this could actually be a product that's out there, right? Where somebody's going to say, I'm going to create the biggest, baddest database of signals. And just like you have a, have I been owned, breach, password list, or any of these other data services, this could end up being another product.
Am I on notice? Exactly, right? Exactly, yeah.
Something like that could take place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a great question, and the best way to phrase it is you're ingesting a lot of data points, right? So you have your internal because it's your data, but you could integrate with external systems that do endpoint detection to be vendor agnostic. Those could be perfect. They could be bad. But like the other guy was saying, also one of the last questions in the panel, it was, do you trust them? How efficient are they? Are they legitimate? So you should definitely get external sources of trust. So like EDR platforms, 100%. Should you go after social providers? In the workforce, probably not. But it is very much a mixture of internal and external, because not only that, this is just public knowledge. Like Okta has this in their platform right now. They support CAEP. They support it both ways. You can send to them, they send back to you. Like that's what everyone should aspire to be, is you're both a transmitter and a receiver, because, say it again, sharing is caring, right?
How do you get around privacy concerns, that kind of thing?
That is a tough question. And I think the way you have to do that is, if you share with your SaaS providers, it's essentially your data. So it's a little bit easier in the workforce. Same thing goes for EDR platforms, but if I ever wanted to share with like an external company, yeah, there's standards out there for that. Like in OpenID, there's a thing called is it a PPID, Pairwise Student Anonymous Identifier? That's where it's just a mapping table that says, this is Jeff, this is Jim. Let's say your ID is 1 and 2. But to them, you're going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That way you only ever share that identifier. That way, if they see something anomalous about you, they send over your 789, which I know is 2. That's the way you can do privacy sharing. That's one example. There are plenty of use cases for those of you listening and watching that you'll be like, yeah, but what about, of course, they're all there. But in the amount of time that we have, that's an easy example to say that's how you could interoperate and be privacy aware, because I'm really, like Mike is, I'm really big on privacy, really big.
So outside of our panel, what else have you seen here at Identiverse that has been, sort of in support of shared signals framework, CAEP. Are you seeing the love outside of our little bubble of our panel, or are there other things that are taking place where it's like, okay, we still have some work to do to either educate or inform or drive that adoption and get more vendors on board?
So the vendor adoption is always there. Like, you should always tell your vendors, this is what I want, this is what I want. And the only way they're going to do it is by listening to you, right? You, the users, not you, Jess.
Vendors, get on board.
It was the keynotes were pretty interesting. Andy had a good one. The one after Andy was really good too, and they're calling out that continuous identity is needed. And what even is more surprising now is you need an event-driven architecture. That was like, I sat back in my chair, feel my hands on my head, and I crossed my legs, and I was like, okay, this is good. This is good. When you see more than one person say it who isn't in your direct circle of everyday talk, it's both reassuring, ratifying, and relieving. It's very much relieving, because when more people say it, like, it's when one person has an idea, it's an idea. When two have it, it's a collective. When 3, 4, 5, it expands out, then it gets exponential. That's called adoption, right? And I think it was very, very evident that I still think continuous identity is foundational to a lot of things like workload and AI and stuff. But if you look at the pace AI is going, and the pace that we're allowing automation to do our jobs, the amount of data that needs to be correct is insane. And I said this in my talk, in my workshop, and I'm going to say it again tomorrow in my session, where AI is not ready for our data, because our data is not ready for AI. It's just not.
What do you mean?
A lot of data that companies have are either stale, outdated, or they're 12 hours old or a day old. AI doesn't wait for an hour or 12 days to make a decision. It's like, oh, look, I can go solve this problem over here with this data set it's accurate, right? Mm-hmm. Go. Then some viewers or listeners are going to be like, well, there's hallucinations. I know that. But if you're taking action on hallucinations, caveat emptor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, you mentioned about workload identities. I remember when he brought it up, I said non-human identities, which raised your ire. There you go.
That's another good word.
Ire and plethora.
Wow.
Brought to you by the dictionary.
Brought to you by the Encyclopedia Britannica.
There you go.
No, what is it about that non-human identity terminology that you don't like?
It's too broad. The classification is too broad. You can get into devices, you can get into workload, you can get into machines. I like a classification that's more simplistic. So Eric Wallstrom and Martin from Company Jordan Cole, they've coined the term workload IAM, and I haven't seen much pushback on it. And I had the same thought not talking to either of them a year and a half ago. And it's just like, where I do my work, we call it that. And it's just, NHI is just more like, it's a buzzword, but it's like, oh, NHIs. What does that mean? Is it your phone? Is it your device? Is it your laptop? Is it a Lambda? Is it a workload?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think everything can be a workload. You use your laptop to do something, which is a workload, right? A machine does something, which is a workload, right? It just, the generalization works, but NHI is like, I personally don't, I like workload versus that, because Eric's a pretty smart guy, Martin's a pretty smart guy, and they tend to get it right. And if two birds say something and I'm like, it makes sense the same way, tends to work out that way. You have a triangle of, like, not triangle of trust, because we're not in that movie, but like circle of trust, right?
The conjoined triangles of success.
Exactly, conjoined triangles of success. It makes more sense, honestly. It just does.
So I disagree, not in theory, right, in just the semantics of this.
Okay.
And I feel like non-human identity is fine. It's not new. I think that's the most important. It's like, it's not like non-human identity started last week. We've had service accounts,
years old.
we've
Yes.
had punch cards, all these things have been operating machines, identities. What I think of it as more is, I think it's a little bit of a marketing term. I think that's probably okay, because we need to help people understand, because they don't understand the word workload. A normal person, right? And we are not normal people.
So I'm gonna ask you a question then, that you don't agree. Love opinions. What's a giraffe?
What's a what?
A giraffe.
A giraffe's an animal.
Is that a non-human identity?
Yes.
We've
We've already made a decision that a human is a human, and if
Okay.
you're not a human, it's something else.
Okay.
Now, again, semantics. Could we say there's another subclassification of
Exactly.
carbon-based life form,
And I was waiting for you to go there.
right,
Exactly.
versus non-carbon-based life form?
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
NCBH.
It's kind of a catch-all term right now, and it's a hot one of the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, think about ITDR. It's like all anybody could talk about last year. It's definitely toned down this year. Why is that? I'm not sure. Maybe it's just that you have a tendency to say, this is the hot thing, and get on it. By the way, I don't think giraffe is an identity. If what you're talking about is they put a chip in under a skin, and it's
That's a machine entity, a device entity of some sort of
is
tracking
it?
chip.
Then every piece of inventory is an identity. And then it's like, well,
See, we're getting into semantics again of can a non-human have an identity versus not? And we've had this discussion before about the difference between an identity versus an account.
right.
And I don't know if we
This
we
is great
still
to
don't
watch.
agree on it
This
yet.
is great to watch. I love it.
Yeah. But I feel like, in my defense, it's NHI, non-human identities, literally in the thing.
So
in my
here's the
defense-
one that I think is about to really become a hot topic is continuous authentication, because we're starting to talk to organizations that are coming up with different form factors to keep you authenticating rather than just logging in. You have to be wearing some kind of proximity device.
You're emanating an authentication.
You know what that is? That's continuous identity.
Yep.
That's CAEP. Absolutely.
yeah.
So before CAEP was CAEP, it was continuous authentication. Sorry, continuous authentication. But then CAEP came around to where continuous authentication is too chatty. It's always check, always check, always check. Whereas even if you were a device for proximity, as long as your device is on and emitting a signal, pun intended, that's a way to check relevancy, right? But continuous authentication, which I think you're right, CAEP and continuous identity is going to be pivotal and foundational to what we want to do to your NHI, to my workload IAM, to AI. But it is a hot topic, and I think a lot of companies are so struggling to get it right because they're looking at things like, I got to get more factors, I got to get this, I got to get stronger factors. You do, crawl, walk, run. But in the walk and run phase, you got to get your data. Your data is what matters. Because if you don't understand your data population, what they're doing, how they're using it, you're going to build bad policy and probably make poor investments in things that may not accomplish what your business task is.
Mm-hmm.
I use the word may, not is or are or will. So,
Well, it also creates a brand new threat vector to protect against. Okay, we've put a lot of our data into this thing. What are we doing to protect it?
correct.
Because it's going to be really attractive for people to want to get
We're
to.
going to protect it with AI. That was a joke.
Well, then
That was a
AI is
joke,
going
man.
to solve it. 100% more AI
Exactly, yeah.
defense.
So I've been, thinking about this shared signals framework. It feels like it fits within this concept of identity fabric. It feels to me like you need to have your arms around the identity of a, say, human, but also of the device. So when you talk about kind of like what is necessary from a device identity or device management perspective, where is kind of the baseline to be successful with the shared signals framework? Do you have to be somewhere in that journey, or is it wherever you are, it can help you?
Start small. Pick the smallest use case, the smallest implementation with the smallest blast radius, and just try it out. So we actually, in the workshop, we left our participants with, your homework is to go try this, whiteboard it out, and start at the smallest scale. Just try it one time. Get it all together.
And we're out there beeping horn too.
And do one revocation. When you see it work one time, it is so intoxicating. You're just like, wow, I want more of that. Because I know when I've seen others do it, and you just see like the giddiness. They're like, oh, that can happen. It's good. But you have to start small. You have to. You really do. And from a device perspective, you don't need to have like, oh, the IMEI number, the device ID. I mean, heck, your laptop. I mean, if it's your laptop with a user agent and an IP and you, that's good enough. I mean, the odds of you being able to do things with your laptop that's your personal one and not managed, slim to none. there are companies working on that to support SSF, but it has to be a managed device, or you have to be logged into your browser of choice for them to actually do that, because it can't just be public, like, oh, I know Jeff's laptop, or revoke it. That doesn't work that way. Not yet.
What is the smallest proof of concept you could do? Can I do this in a spreadsheet? Is Access database still a thing? Or would you recommend like something a little more modern, Graph database, Neptune, something like that? Like,
do you mean
how quickly could I establish this central source of data? Because I know people out there like, well, we can use it in a spreadsheet. Could that be a source?
If it is, you have to be able to action on the source, which means you could hook it up to Visual Basic and do some API
like
calls.
How much bubble gum and chicken wire and duct tape?
I mean, you don't really need data to test this out. There's a great open source, non-owned by any company website called CAEP.dev, CAEP.dev,
which will have in our show notes.
And I think Kaiser has sharedsignals.guide, GUIDE. In there, you can put in everything you need in a fake target system that you can see what would happen. I mean, it sounds crazy. Spin up a brand new tenant of your choice, fake, and go try it out for efficacy. And it is super easy to do. Super easy.
So we're a vendor agnostic podcast, so I'm not asking you to endorse anybody. But you've walked the XO floor. Did anybody jump out like, whoa, that's a cool solution?
Or maybe in a specific area. Like there's a whole NHI pavilion. Is it PAM? Is it IGA? Is it some sort of authentication?
Or you can call it a company name. I mean, what the heck?
I walked the floor, and there's a lot of AI and NHI here. The soup du jour is I can secure your MCP server with a proxy and a gateway and authorize it. That is like, everybody has that now. Here, it's like, great. Stop talking to me about that, right? But from what I've seen, what has stood out here is there's not a lot of people, vendors-wise, that are looking at the bigger picture of continuous, and they're chasing AI and NHI. They're chasing it. And what's going to really be unfortunate is that you're going to have purchased these tools, these things to secure your platforms. Without the backing of the data, it's not going to work the way you want it to. But back to your point, though, what I have seen is there's a lot of focus on identity verification here. I kind of like that now. Like, there's some companies here to remain agnostic, but identity verification is becoming a thing now, finally. That should have been a thing 3 years ago. Yeah. That probably was a thing 3 years ago, but people are starting to realize that this North Korea thing is a problem, right? Not the country, just the whole. We've all read the articles, but it's that to me stood out. There's more than one vendor doing that here now, and I'm like, win. Okay.
That's a really interesting area because it started off really as government kind of vendors and focus, right, of trying to prevent fraud and how do you make sure the right social services are getting to the right people and things like that. And then it was like, okay, finance usually is a leading indicator of people adopting that. And now it's starting to get further down. I mean, you can see it now. It's like, okay, well, I'm calling a help desk. How do I know that it's Sean calling me and not AI Sean or someone phishing me? Because chances are phishing is going to be the way you're going to get breached, because that's what's going to happen statistically.
And with what Google's VO3 just released,
which is crazy,
scary.
Yeah.
Like, if you have not played with that yet, oh my, you should. So it's
super cool and super terrifying.
Yes.
And it's just a glimpse.
Oh,
I would say this is the worst it will ever be. It's going to be better tomorrow, better and better and better.
No,
All right.
Great question. I mean, I saw identity verification as like, wow, I'm like, good. Because that keeps me up at night.
I mean, I think it's going to be helpful. I think one of the things I have to think about is the credential management itself, and then where do you get them from, and how do you make sure that everyone has access to it. That's all stuff that I think that will eventually get figured out. But I think there is that authenticity that needs to be established of, okay, who am I talking to? And
it's like, do this.
Is a good way, right?
Prove to me you're you, right?
Blink if you're real.
Blink 3 times if you're you, but then on 1 foot. Exactly, right. Yeah.
I feel like we could go on and on and on, but I do want to wrap this up.
Okay.
Sean, it's always great having you here
Same.
on the show, and I really enjoyed our panel, so thank you again for inviting me to be part of it. I was just trying to keep up.
I'll say it out loud. You did a great job with it. I always look to you for like help, and you take thoughts very well, and you're like, I got you. So thank you so much. Atul, same thing. Loved it. Mike and Andrew was like, man, Jeff did a great job. So thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate it.
Seriously.
I think it's, like I said, I think moderating is the easiest thing. I had a conversation with Grace Klupke, who was a DIF award winner for us. I caught her in the hallway, and she did a panel, and we had a little bit of a discussion of is moderating harder or easier than being on the panel itself? And I said, well, for me, moderating is easy because I just turn the questions over to smart people and say, okay, you guys answer these questions. And in our session today was awesome because literally 30 minutes of like straight audience questions, like, yeah, go to this person over here, go to that person over there. And
you should ask Atul about this because he moderated the IPSI panel. And it's like, ask him what he thought about it. It was harder to moderate or be on a panel because I think it's harder to moderate personally.
Well, here we go. That's our call to action. Put in the comments below whether you think moderating or being on a panel is better or not. So
what I think is funny though is like, go to the different panels or sessions, and I'm like, that person's been on the podcast. That everyone on the stage today in your panel has been on the podcast. No surprise, but
yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, we're always grateful when people spend time with us.
Your Andrew Cameron session with you, I thought you guys were going to geek out on EVs. I was like, man, is this Identity Center or is it like EV now? What is it? It was a great one. It was good. It was good.
Well, all right, let's get out of here because I think we've got a bunch of stuff to do tonight. It's kind of another long day at Vegas, but definitely appreciate you being on the show again for us, Sean.
Always pleasure to have me. Thank you both very much. You guys are great.
I'll have your LinkedIn in our show notes as well as cape.dev, CAEP.dev. And then, idacpodcast.com. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Again, thanks to RSM. Thanks to Identiverse for helping us out with getting this off the ground. And we'll talk with everyone in the next one.
You've been listening to Identity at the Center. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit the website at identityatthecenter.com. See you next time on Identity at the Center.